Hello everyone, it's Gav here. I hope you're all doing very, very well. Myself and Grizz were in London on Tuesday and we were at the offices and studios of 90-Minute Football. We were asked to go over and we were asked to do a little bit of a chat about Liverpool and I suppose everything about the club at the moment, seeing as that we're on such a high and doing so well in the league, and of course the European Cup run is still going, the FA Cup run is still going. Grizz has done a little bit of work with these over the last little while and he's done really well. He's been brilliant on it. And if you haven't subscribed to 90-Minute Football yet on YouTube, go and do it. The work they do and the work Grizz is doing with them has been really, really, really impressive. We were there with Ben, who's the man from 90-Minute Football. He was our host. As of course, myself and Grizz and Neil Atkinson and Mo Stewart from the Anfield Wrap. It's about an hour long and they've kindly given us the audio so we can put it up onto our feed. So sit back and enjoy. There's talk of European Cups, there's talk of the league so far, there's players, there's owners, there's everything, mentality, everything is thrown in there within the hour. I hope you enjoy and talk to you soon.
Hi guys, welcome to a special 90-Min Daily. We thought as things are getting to that stage where it looks like it's inevitable, we needed to do this show. Just a bit of a Liverpool special, deep diving into why it's gone so right this season as well as where it's going to go over the course of the next 15, 16 weeks. So I've got Gavin and Grizz from LFC Day Trippers. I've got Mo and Neil from the Anfield Wrap. Very lucky to have everyone down with us. I don't know where to begin. Should we start with the Champions League? Should we start with the kind of like the two Champions League finals and the path that you've been on since then? Because it did feel like that was quite a seminal moment, the first defeat, right? The way that everyone came away from that, it didn't feel like the end, did it? It kind of felt like, right, you're going to go on an upward trajectory. Do you want to kick us off, Grizz?
It was exactly what Klopp said. There were so many clips of the final afterwards where he turns around and says, "This is the beginning. This is why I must stress to the fans," and he made a point of it and he was convinced. And I think a lot of people at that stage were sort of bought into his sort of philosophy and his mindset of this sort of doubters to believers type thing, that he had this mantra. And, you know, I'm the same. I'm exactly the same as what Klopp was thinking. I knew, even though we had lost to Madrid and it hurt, the pain and the way it happened with Mo and everything, I knew it was just the beginning of the best things of my lifetime. I was literally around the corner. So this
is as good as you've ever seen?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably one of the elder statement. but I've said to you before, Ben, it's the most, how shall I put it? It's the most enjoyable time to be a Red because everything seems perfect from top to bottom. And we've had brilliant players, we've had brilliant coaches, but now we've got, you know, the management, the ownership, the result, everything seems so perfect. It's like we're living in an LFC dream world, and long may it continue.
And so coming into the next Champions League final, were you sort of like, we've seen the transition now. We've gone from being a very good side to a side that's ready to conquer Europe again and then maybe go on.
Yeah, his transition wasn't just that European Cup final though against Madrid. I think if you look back to the Europa League, he loses the League Cup final and people were, you know, he's lost 5 of his last final.
Yeah, there was a lot of chat around that, wasn't there? It was getting a bit heavy.
And maybe, I don't know, did it heap a little bit more pressure on him after Real Madrid? I don't know, but the reaction was second to none. You know, people thought, could he react? Could he get into the Champions League again? Was the talk the following season. But he doesn't. He goes and he puts a squad together there. He adds 1 or 2 in, mainly Alisson, after getting Van Dijk 6 months previous. But he puts this squad together and they go and they basically, the last half an hour of the Premier League season is when the league title is decided. But he goes and wins the European Cup. But it was all about the reaction for me, you know, and showing how solid this squad was and the belief that they had in themselves, because it would have been easy for many a player in that squad, the likes of a Milner, a Lallana, a Henderson, you name them, Day and Lovren, to say, we got there and it didn't work out for us and they could have fell down, but Klopp didn't allow it. He just didn't allow it.
Madrid was massive from the point of view of, I mean, if they'd have lost that, And especially after going, I remember, like, you know, they go 1-0 up, the way they go 1-0 up that early in the game, it felt even more like, God, if they lose this, because the journey had been so positive and it had been so positive off the back of Madrid, there'd been a clear issue with the goalkeeper Karius, and he brings in Alisson. And I think that allowed everyone to believe, everyone to get together on the page, the players, the supporters, everyone felt like it's on again here. We can do something. Not necessarily 97 points in a European Cup final, but we can do something. That Champions League final, as I say, they go 1-0 up, and I remember on about 60, and they have Tottenham at arm's length, but your heart's in your mouth, because it would have been so difficult. Yeah, because it would have been so difficult to pick them up again and pick us up again. Yeah. You know, it would have felt cataclysmic at that point if that game had gone the other way and Tottenham had somehow got a 2-1 win. But they never looked like doing it. And when you watch the video back, Liverpool are in complete control. They've dominated the game. But obviously at the time, because you're living and dying by this. And when Origi makes it 2-0, honestly, I've done this at our live shows. I talk to a lot of people about this. Everyone's crying. There was barely anyone in that end who wasn't in tears. Yeah, but it was that moment of the journey, that moment of we finally see them do something, because they got 97 points. And if they hadn't got to lift something brilliant up, they come back from 3-0 down against Barcelona 4-0. You know, if they hadn't got to lift something brilliant up, at the end of that, it would have just killed you. And it was an absolute outpouring of sheer relief when Origi scores. And I think that just allows everyone to kick on, everyone to relax.
It's interesting you said it, because it felt in the stadium at the time that Liverpool were in complete control. Like you said, they were at arm's length, but I suppose when you're so invested, it's very difficult to sort of remove yourself at
the time. It's the history as well. I mean, we've been coming second or coming runners-up in the league or in cups for so long.
So close every time.
So close. This is going to be the time. This is going to be the time. And then it's not. And then it's not. Just getting over the line that first time was so massive, because not only did it give people belief in the squad, anyone within that squad who was thinking, well, maybe I'm not going to be able to fulfill my ambitions here. I love this club, but I might have to go somewhere else to win big trophies. That was instantly killed. For me, I think looking back on the whole parts of the journey, one of the biggest things in that changing of mindset for me was Fabinho. We basically, these lot were still on the way back from Kiev. When we announced that we signed Fabinho, it was right there. It was a guy who no one had been touting up we were after, but who, as we've seen since, has been absolutely perfect. And the fact that they had that ready to go, as if to say, look, we did well here, but this is a brand new start. And then you think about Alisson, you think about the periods of that summer where maybe people were talking about, we're not going to get him, because at that point, the price was apparently too high. And you have that incident where he's got the pre-season friendly, Karius is playing at Tranmere, and it goes horribly wrong. And I don't know whether that was a catalyst or not, but someone in the club said, we have to go and get that guy.
One of the main reasons why the Champions League win was such a catalyst and such motivation and sort of relief was because, often clubs you talk about who haven't won a title for a while, they say, well, you need to win a League Cup to start off that winning mentality. Well, we won the biggest trophy as our first ever trophy after a little while. So the confidence that gave to the team, the squad, even the fans, was absolutely out of this world, because we've just won the Champions League. We didn't win the League Cup to start off our trophy. We didn't win the FA Cup. We won the biggest trophy that out there is. And that, I think that confidence just went straight through the squad.
I agree with that. I used to think that it was not a myth, but I used to think people overplayed the idea of the addiction to winning. That it was like, oh, once you win one, you get the bug and you want to do it again. I thought, well, come on, there's more to it than that. But when you're so I was standing in the mix zone as they were running through with the trophy, and the players were on such a high that you just think, oh my God. Like, after that drifted off, you'd be like, I need it again. I need that feeling
again. As part of that, there's then the trophy parade. And they've all cited the trophy parade, and the trophy parade was off the charts, and I think they were surprised by it. And a lot of people don't like Liverpool supporters talking about things like this because they think it refers to a Scouse exceptionalism, which feels as though, but the point about this is that many people did come and watch Liverpool put the trophy around the city. The players had been motivated by those scenes in the same way that the players are motivated in big games by the noises that are in the grounds, by the atmosphere. That you can say, oh, well, that's anyone, or you can say, well, it's not loud when we come, if you're Bournemouth. You can go down that sort of list. But the reality is that the reality speaks for itself. Those scenes around that trophy parade, absolutely, like Klopp still talked about it after the fact. The players have cited it repeatedly. It just told them, yet again, firstly, how big the club is, but secondly, how much it means to so many people. And imagine that high. Imagine getting off that bus that day and going off to your international duty and thinking, well, how do we get another one of them? Well, there's an easy way to do it. Let's go and win the league.
There's one of the bigger motivations. Like, people talk about money and trophies, don't get me wrong, medals at the end of your career, but there's no doubt that the Liverpool players and management staff look at this and say, we could go and do that again, you know, come May, June this year, but it'll be bigger this year. It'll be 100% bigger this year because European Cup, brilliant. 750,000 people, do you reckon, went and watched that parade. It'll be bigger than that. Like, I'm from Dublin, and I can tell you, you will not get a flight out of Dublin. And genuinely, you will not get a flight out of Dublin Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday of that weekend at the end of May if the parade was to happen. I don't think it will happen because we'll be in the European Cup final a couple of weeks later, in my opinion. So you'll end up having, hopefully, a double celebration. That's how big it is. Like Neil says, players getting off that bus know about the history and everything around Liverpool. But when you feel it firsthand, like James Milner speaks about it a lot, but James Milner's seen it firsthand as a 33-year-old man, you know, a really experienced footballer. And then he comes and sees that, and he has to be walking off going, no, it's actually bigger than I thought. Genuinely.
This just on the parade thing. Our videographer Sam, he does loads of great work with us. The Anfield Wrap. He was on one of the buses, and Sam supports Arsenal, so this is a really important point. Sam supports Arsenal, and he was on one of the buses, and it's going round. And when I saw him the morning after, he'd said it was like a religious experience. Like he couldn't believe what he'd gone through. And he's not coming there from a Liverpool point of view. Literally supports Arsenal, and he said it. You know, it was unbelievable. And if we get another one this year, which we now expect at least one for the league title, you'd like to think at this stage, like he's already said, Ash, who works with us, he wants Ash to do it. He wants Ash to get to experience it. Because he's referred to it as an experience. I want you to get to experience that. So if they're kind enough to invite us on again, which they might not do, but if they do, then, you know, Ash will get to experience it, and that's Sam's outlook on it. And so, you know, that this is a guy, as I say, Arsenal, no, you know, loves what we do, but no real love for Liverpool in a sense. Imagine being Jordan Henderson. At that moment when you've captained this and now all these people have come out. Imagine being Jurgen Klopp. Imagine, you know, just simply having that in your bones, because that's where it'd be by that point.
I do want to come on to the connection that the club seems to have with the fans as well, because I do think that's probably the best in the league, and I think they've actually paved the way for how you should interact with your fans and treat your fans. But let's come on to just the beginning of the league, because you posted a video not long ago, and it was us in the studio, and people had said the quotes were City by Christmas. That Liverpool wouldn't be able to maintain it. And
no. There's a special folder for that. I've posted one already. I mean, credit to you. You from the start said your favourites were Liverpool. But I just think, look, it's kind of understandable. A lot of people make Man City favourites, you know, 98-point season, then 100-point season. Pep Guardiola, super manager, super coach, super players. They didn't buy anyone this summer, did they?
Rodri. The Holden mids, yeah.
So you can imagine them being favourites. But I just couldn't understand the sort of disrespect almost shown to Liverpool as in terms of how much people thought that City are going to win it by. You was at the show at yourself where everyone was saying, oh, I don't think Liverpool will be able to maintain the pace that they've sort of, they were saying it's a one-off season. And I was so adamant and so sure that it's not because we knew, as we've said, we've just discussed, we knew the upward curve, the trajectory of Liverpool was definitely upwards. Whereas I personally thought Man City had sort of reached their peak in that season. I thought that is their peak, especially looking at the age of their squad. No really significant signings, Aguero, Fernandinho, not replacing Kompany, which I did say is going to be massive, and so it turned out. So I just found the disrespect almost shown to Liverpool. You know, I didn't understand it. And no one thought, I don't think anyone sat here thought it's going to be this, like having won in January. I'm saying it, we've won it. Right? We've won it in January. And it's amazing. But I definitely thought that we're an upward curve and it's going to be out of us too. But
I can understand to a certain extent, because if you look at the way we finished last season, we didn't drop a point after the 3rd of March, I think it was, and we played so fantastically well, and it still wasn't enough. And you can understand how, for a team who've maybe come close, as we were saying a few times, and not got there, you can start to lose a little bit of heart and things. But going back to the Champions League final, the way that we were able to come back the very next year and finish the job, that's exactly what they were saying in that dressing room. Look, we've done it with the Bout Trophy. We can do it with this one. And if you look further back than March and look at from the beginning of last season to now, the consistency that we've showed, it is insane.
It's insane.
It's unprecedented. And it was only 2 years before that we were talking about Manchester City as being unprecedented, as being an untouchable team.
Untouchables.
And when you think about the perception people had of Manchester City, I think that played into as well.
Yeah,
why
absolutely.
Because it was almost like parts of last season, you couldn't see them losing. You couldn't see how any team could get around them. Everything they had an answer for. And if you look at now, That's what people are saying about us.
I do remember as well there was a certain scepticism, particularly from Liverpool fans, about the fact that you hadn't done a huge amount of business over the summer.
That's the thing that convinced me we'd win the league.
Really?
Yeah, because, and just going on Man City and stuff like that, to me it feels like the football world in England, I suppose, can only laud one team at a time. You know, if you watch back, now they said it was a fantastic title race, but you would find, you know, they're talking about City, can they chase the 100? Can they chase the 100 again? They get 98 and we get 97. That's fine. And I was of the opinion early on in the summer that after winning the European Cup and doing so well in the league that you strengthen from a position of power. I will be of that opinion. If you're in a position of power, you strengthen. You don't stand still. But when it gets to whatever it is, the 9th of August and the window shuts, you'll always hear people say, you know, back the manager, you know, back what he's trying to do and back. And when I looked at when Jurgen Klopp has decided that all he's going to do is sign Harvey Elliott and Sepp van den Berg in the summer, he believes in it. So, and he knows a lot more about football than I do. So if he believes in it and he believes that that squad, like Mo says, can finish a job like they done the previous season with the European Cup, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, from day one, I thought Liverpool would win the title.
Let's touch on the start of the season then, because you go into the games and then it was almost disaster in losing Alisson straight away. You bring in Adrian, who's come over the course of it was sort of the latter end of the window, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And yeah, I suppose that's one of the things that we'll probably look back on, or maybe won't get talked as much about, but he performed really well. Like, he was certainly passable as a backup keeper that probably wasn't thinking he was going to play any games.
Yeah, he gets, and I think what really helps is he gets that Super Cup under his belt, the penalty saves, and I think straight away then, firstly, not only has he won a trophy, it's not like we won 5-0 and he had nothing to do. He saved the penalties. You know, he's there in goal for that. So I think that makes a difference to him and gets him moving. He gets away with the big error at Southampton, you know, and it's fine for him to be rusty. Yeah. It's a massive error, but Liverpool get out 2-1 on the day, and, you know, if he doesn't make the error, it all looks a lot calmer, but in the end, you know, Southampton are putting balls in the box. But the point is that he stays alive. And Alisson himself, he doesn't get the knock. He doesn't get that thing of, he feels like a substitute goalkeeper. Instead, and I think his personality type, what you hear of him off the pitch, in the dressing room, also the way in which he sort of conducted himself on things around social media, he also comes across like, frankly, what you sort of need, which is a bit of a buzzhead. He's absolutely got into this, and suddenly this is his mad life, because a few weeks ago I was doing this. He's all in. We're all in with him. The players are all in with him. And yeah, we had to change a couple of things. And I think just at the point, I think it's Salzburg at home in the Champions League, where I don't think he's great. I think he has a bit of a sticky day. And it's just at the point where you might have started to think, God, I wish Alisson was back. But it was sound because Alisson was back. So, you know, I think that little things go for you sometimes in a season. And as I say, if we don't win the Super Cup, and if that Southampton game finishes 2-2, and if maybe there's another 3 weeks and it begins to just all sort of fade a little bit and the adrenaline buzz disappears, then maybe we might talk about him a little differently. But now, you know, I want him to play in the FA Cup final if we get there. I want him to get that opportunity. I think he's earned it. He's earned that idea now that he's proper second choice Liverpool goalkeeper.
But again, Neil talks about his character and personality around the club. I think that's just more credit to the recruitment team, how much analysis we do in terms of their personality and character. He seems perfect fit. So even when he's not playing, there's no disharmony. He's not causing any disruption. He's in fact helping around sort of the rest of the teammates, even the younger teammates. You know, they talk about, you know, Adrian's helping them out, the new signings. It just shows that how much homework is done, and everything's sort of so brilliantly planned out.
So moving in the right direction across the board, isn't it? I do want to touch on that Southampton game, because that to me felt like, now looking back, is probably the first one in the season where you thought, this is where the pattern started. Liverpool getting their noses in front, having to weather a bit of a storm, at times giving away a couple of chances, but having enough to go onto an extra gear and just breeze past people.
Yeah, they were the better side until about 40 Southampton.
Jones had a couple of massive
he has a decent header that comes across the box, but they don't really. Liverpool hang in the game really, really well, and as they've done at times this season. But then Liverpool, Manny scores just before the break, and I think another pattern that gets established at Southampton, the 15 after half time, Liverpool are unreal. Yeah. Southampton are lucky.
You've seen it on Sunday again.
Yeah, you saw it on Sunday again, just gone. Southampton are lucky to get out, and it's only 2-0 out of that phase of play. That could have been 3, it could have been 4. Liverpool got them penned in around the box, they can't get out. It's tremendous. But then, it ends up being 2-1, and Liverpool get that single goal lead that they need, a victory that they go on to get again and again. But it's back to the Tottenham game, it's back to the final. Arm's length. Yeah, but they were at arm's length, and I think that arm's length is one of the things that a lot of sides have come out after having played Liverpool this season and basically got beat by a goal and gone, Liverpool were fortunate there. Can't have been fortunate 21 times, lads.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
No, that's not how it works.
And it's another evolution of the side as well, because if you think back to earlier Klopp teams, we would have those periods where we could blitz teams, but if we didn't get the goals, we were then susceptible to a comeback. If we didn't get enough goals, and I think that's why it took a lot of fans a while to get used to what we're seeing and to become less nervous when we're only a goal in front. Because you think of all those times, I think back to Sevilla in Champions League away from home where we were 3-0 up losing, ended up 3-3. But now we have the confidence in our defence, not only the personnel, but our structure and our organisation to say, look, we're going to have to withstand pressure here, but we can. We've done it again and again and again. And it gets to the point where if you do it as a team enough times, the opposition start to lose heart. They start to think like
beating teams before they even get out onto the pitch.
And the psychological element, again, going back to the comparison with Manchester City, if you look at the game against Crystal Palace, Manchester City scored 2 goals late on to go from 1-0 down to 2-1 up. You think, oh, okay, Aguero's done it again. They've got out of jail. Palace didn't think that. Palace thought there's still something in there.
There's still something for us.
They went out there 2 minutes later and they got their equaliser.
Let me put your brains just a little bit on that on the start of the season, because Liverpool only kept 2 clean sheets in the first 15. Mm-hmm. Has that been something that Liverpool have grown into in terms of like this defence getting stronger and just feeling a little bit more assured in the style of play?
I don't think they were helped with the centre half situation, and that's gone on. It's still going on, I suppose. Joe Gomez at the moment, I think it's 8 clean sheets in 9 league games. Is that right? Since he's come back in, I don't think they were helped with that. But the big trend for me of the season is the different ways Liverpool are winning games. Like Mo said there, we used to go out and blitz teams 3-0 and hope for a 3-2 by the end of it. You know, go and beat them 4 and 5, but we've evolved now into a side that can go out and blast. Like Neil said, 15 minutes after half time, we could have put 3 past United in that 15 minutes, without a shadow of a doubt. But we're evolving into this all the time. Yeah, defensively, it wasn't great. Look, I think we've only conceded 14 league goals this season. Yeah. And 14 of them were in the first 14 games. So we're averaging only 1 goal a game. It was more than it was made out to be. But as you look at this team as it goes on and on and on, and we'll do so right up until May and the 16 league games that remain, they'll win games in so many ways. Yeah. And the defensive stuff that was talked about, more than hope by others, I think, than actual reality, I think that'll be long, long forgotten by the end of the season.
We've evolved into a team that deals with problems live. So whatever we're faced with, we deal with it. So for example, against Man United, we come out sort of a bit cagey because they've discussed it, the change of system from Man United. 2 left backs. We're trying to work it out. It took us 10 minutes and then we blitzed them. So then after half time, we know we need another goal. We came out, and for me personally, I thought it was some of the best football we played in a long time, that first 15, 20 minutes. And then maybe it's natural to retreat, and then we know we have to defend, and then we defend absolutely immaculately. All right, Martial gets a chance. So for me, we've evolved into a team that just deals with every problem just right there, live and exclusive kind of thing.
What do you reckon was the game when you get through that first 15 games? Is there a moment that you can remember thinking, hang on a second, this is on here?
Well, no, I think by 15 games you knew it was on. I think the comeback at Villa is massive. I remember it being massive. Sure. For me, the game where you're able to... The 2 games against Leicester, home and away, sort of illustrate a lot of what we're talking about. The away game at Leicester is the performance of champions. They decimate second in the league. They go to their ground. Liverpool are meant to be finding it tough coming back from Qatar. Leicester rock up and get put to the swords. They barely have a shot in their own ground. And it's in front of the nation. 8 o'clock Boxing Day.
The nation was waiting for us to look forward to that.
8 o'clock Boxing Day cop for that. But I think the home game against Leicester is one of the ones that's actually, I think, given us... it seems like such a niche rant.
Was that the Milner pen?
The Milner pen last minute. Yeah. But Liverpool that day destroyed Leicester. We absolutely played them off the park. They scored they had 2 shots in the game, and they scored with the second one from Maddison. And, it wasn't like a shot that should be going in. Maybe the goalkeeper, it's Adrian at that time, could do a little bit better. But Liverpool genuinely should have been, by that point, 3-4 ahead. The goals don't come. And instead they hang in there and they get the winner. But the way in which it was framed post-match, I'm watching the Match of the Day coverage. It was framed, they showed everything that Leicester did in the Liverpool half that was in any way, shape or form half decent, and they didn't even show the best chance of the game, which was something Salah burned just after half time, not dissimilar to the one against United the other day. Yeah. And they didn't even show that. And I was gobsmacked watching it, because what they wanted to frame was this idea of Liverpool showing guts, character and getting a bit of fortune last kick of the game. Not, these are currently the best team in the country. Yes. And I think that in general, it would be a lot easier for people if they could just relax, the general football public, into the idea that Liverpool are just the best team in the country.
But I think that's starting to happen now.
I think it is now, but I think Leicester is, I think the Leicester away game is a bit of a sea change in that, when everyone's just sort of gone, well, they've just absolutely took them to the cleaners. There's no arguments.
And at the time, like you said, coming back from Qatar.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah.
Do you think that the City result against Norwich was a little bit of a light bulb moment from a point of view of, hang on a second, Man City are not going to be the same Man City from last year?
I don't know. Them results can happen, you know. Right. And all right, you look at Norwich at the time were playing really well. They were actually, and they came to Anfield on the first day of the season. I was at that game.
They had chances in that game.
They did in the first half. Now, in fairness, I thought Liverpool were. I don't even think they were out of second gear first half, and they were. I think it was 4 up by half time. It was 4-1 and finished. But Norwich at that time still were kind of on a bit of a buzz after coming up, and the adrenaline was still obviously in them. And they went and they played City, and they played very well. They got goals. They beat them. That sort of thing can happen. But to be honest with you, like when it comes down, you do watch City's results. There's no doubt about that. Anyone that tells you they don't, I think they're lying to you. But when it comes around, you know, Liverpool are Liverpool's business, and nobody else is their business. You can only deal with yourself. And I think Liverpool have got into that kind of tunnel vision thing from very early on. The likes of Norwich happening, I'm sure Palace happened the other day to Man City, and anybody else they drop points against helps. And it gives you that extra spur on. But I think Liverpool have literally got tunnel vision from day one here, and have decided whether it's City or Spurs or Chelsea or somebody comes from the pack and has a go, we're not going to concern ourselves. We're just going to do what we're doing.
Once the run gets into sort of full flow, which are the players that you've looked at and gone, he's really stepped up, and he's maybe not got the credit that he deserves?
I think Henderson's been the best player in the country last 8 weeks. I think literally the best footballer in England playing in the Premier League the last 8 weeks. I'd put him ahead of anybody else's performances week in, week out.
Even Gini.
I think that
alongside Gini.
I think Gini has a little dip, doesn't he? Mid-December, he doesn't gets an injury, doesn't play in Qatar. Whereas
football around the time.
Henderson does the business in Qatar as well. What I mean by that is that this 8 week spell, it genuinely is. I think, as I say, I think he's been the best footballer, full stop, in the country at a time where the games have come thick and fast, and there's been a fair few sticky ones. I think it wouldn't surprise me if he could maybe do with a couple of games off, because he's been putting it in the way in which he has. I think he's been tremendous, and he'd be my one of who's really stood up to be counted. As I say, he was good the first part of the season, don't get me wrong, but the last 8 weeks, I think he's been peerless.
You put a poll the other day, didn't you? And you included, was it Mane that was kind of leading the way? Because of his performance over the course of the season.
Yeah, I mean, recent shouts of sort of player of this season in terms of Hendo, I thought he just misses out because I personally thought at the start of the season he slightly struggled. But as Neil says, last 2 months, he's been without shadow of a doubt a leader, an inspiration, and absolutely, especially at a time when Fabinho, the best DM in the world, gets an injury, and as usual, the fan base sort of starts panicking. Oh my God, what are we going to do? And then, you know, Henderson, who's been lambasted a little bit at sort of number 6, comes back and just does an absolute amazing job. I mean, for me personally, your original question was about in terms of who do you think, what was your original
maybe
question?
Didn't get the credit that they deserved, or that players over the course of that run that really kind of shone.
Yeah, I mean, you know, especially with Keita's injury, sort of Oxlade in and out of Milner's injury as well. The amount of work, the leg work, the Hendo and Gini have done, it's insane. I mean, I don't know, I'm not a statsman, I don't know what their numbers are, but they must be off the charts, them two. It's been amazing watching them.
The energy that they put in,
it kills the other team that you just can't keep up with them. I mean, as I said to you in the show we done yesterday, I thought Matic and Fred done a decent job. They just couldn't handle them.
It's strange, isn't it, that you use Liverpool as the bar to say, oh, well done, you got close. You know, you sort of start using that midfield three.
And even Manchester United are doing the same thing. And that's the thing, like, they've kind of just about come to terms with the fact that we are now the yardstick and they aren't the yardstick any longer. And the fact that every team will try to come against us with a new plan, try to surprise us with something new. But as Grizz was saying before, we are so good at problem solving right now. And going back to what you were saying before about clean sheets, the idea that people were worried that we hadn't kept clean sheets. We weren't conceding more than one goal. So we were taking a punch and we were riding it, and we were coming back and winning.
I don't think we've conceded more than one goal in any game, have we?
Salzburg European Cup, the mad 4-3.
That
was like a throwback to previous seasons.
That's what it was, yeah.
And the home derby, the 5-2, which kind of is in a similar vein.
And it's allowed that.
That's allowed. Neighbourly love. Neighbourly love.
If Evertonians are really going to use that they scored 2 goals as something to shout about,
You know what I mean?
we might actually have to let them have that. For me, in terms of a player who's been slightly unsung, I think he's getting sung a little bit more now, but Joe Gomez, I think it's easy to forget that Joel Matip was the Premier League Player of the Month in October, before he comes out.
Good point.
And lots of people at that point have been saying, well, he's actually been playing better than Van Dijk over the last few months. It was a massive, massive potential loss. And when you consider that Joe Gomez is a young lad who's come in and had to come out again, he hasn't really got that rhythm.
Played in the 4-3 at Salzburg.
Played in the 4-3 at Salzburg, got a lot of brickbats because of that.
Dealt with the Sterling thing as well. Magnificently, I thought.
And when you look at him, the assurance that he has on the pitch in his own ability to be able to make those recovery runs, to be able to take the ball under pressure with 2 players either side of him and navigate away through and find the next pass. His confidence, it really does kind of extrapolate across the rest of the defence, and the confidence they have in him, again, for such a young kid. And when you consider him and Trent outside of him and how they could potentially be part of a dominant decade, it really is warming for me to see.
Let's just move on to talk about some of the best moments. So we've mentioned Leicester, but was there any other moments in the season so far that you would put down as
For me, there was
two.
Palace away and, as Neil says, Villa away. That's when I personally, I've always said, no, we're not going to win until about December. I was winding the
Was that when you turned around and said December?
When we beat Palace and Villa.
You've done a prediction, but you can't remember what your prediction is.
Predictions are fluid.
You keep discussing both sides.
Predictions are fluid.
There's clips though.
Yeah. but the win at Palace, where we didn't play well, yet we still somehow, from somewhere, won the game. I think Salah was on the bench that day. Few eyebrows were raised about the team selection. Palace gave us a good game. That's when I knew the mentality is totally different. The term mentality monsters, it just shows mentality monsters isn't about last minute goals. Mentality monsters is based on what we talked about at the start, from losing finals, getting 97 points and not winning the league. That is what's changed our mentality. We've turned into absolute monsters as a result of that. And then Villa, when we went at Villa, I thought this is it. This is our season. I think it was simultaneously being played at the same time as City, where City were.
Yeah, it felt like it could be a tipping point, didn't it?
City would be handing the game and come back. Southampton at home.
That's it.
Yeah, that's the one.
The weird thing with the Villa game is that, as you say about the mentality, I never felt that the game was over. Even though Villa
were from a neutral point of view, right?
Yeah, I felt like it's coming. And then once you got the first goal, you thought, right. This is what the great teams of the past, we talk about the Fergie teams sort of, playing right to the last minute, the 94th, 95th minute. And we've got that. And it's an amazing feeling. I mean, we haven't had it for a little while, so we're going to savour it, man. Was there any points for you, mate, that was kind of really stood out?
Neil touched on earlier, Leicester at home. I think it's huge. I think we do bash them. I think we play them off the park from start to finish. I think it might be only 2 shots with 1 on target in the whole game for Leicester that Maddison scores. And if you go back to the season previous, we do very similar at Anfield on a snowy night at Anfield.
And we draw.
That was Andy from the Day Trippers was at that, and he said it's the coldest thing he's ever been at. He can never ever forget it. But we go ahead in that game. Mane scores early in that game, and it's Harry Maguire that equalises. But it was a huge thing for me to see Liverpool getting pegged back in that game, and you're thinking, not again. Because that can get into your mind. It happened last year, it's happened us again this year. To come back, we get the penalty, Milner sticks it away as if it's just a game on a Sunday somewhere in a park.
One of your 5 sides.
Doesn't mind, one of our 5 sides, but that was huge. I think that was huge because it put a ghost to bed a little bit, and it just kept the run going. I thought it was huge.
What about you, mate?
I have to agree with you about that Leicester game. Thinking back to the one the year before, they equalised, I think, just before half time. Yeah. So we had the whole of the second half to get another goal. And it was just at that point where we were potentially getting a gap to grow against Manchester City.
They'd lost to Newcastle the previous evening.
Exactly. And it didn't happen. Whereas this time we had about 10 minutes to get another goal back, and we were able to do it. my personal memories, most complete performance, Leicester away. I think we've already touched on that. My favourite game, City at home, because it was absolutely the perfect game. If you think about it, you score early, you assert your dominance, you get another one before half-time, and then you get another one 10 minutes after half-time, then you can just turn it down and say, come on, see what you can get from us.
Game management in that game was superb, wasn't it? It felt like there was actually a real distance.
Yes.
You were like, wow, Liverpool are just a much better side at the moment.
And on top of that, obviously, there's the fact that Pep got quite upset during that game. And we have seen those memes repeated again and again and again. And he's going to be seeing that. When people look at the analysis at the end of the season as to what were the moments that Liverpool won it and City lost it, he's going to have to see that again and again. That really makes me happy.
Is there any moment that you look at and go, oh, that was probably a low point, or anything that kind of like stuck out for you as like that was kind of something that we need to fix or work on? I think if you want to talk
about something we need to fix and work on, it's the number of games. Sheffield United away is a good example where Liverpool have 3 or 4 really good chances. Yeah. And I don't mean like, a Che Adams header. I mean Sadio Mane in front of an open goal with no keeper and hitting the post from 6 yards. That's a definition. And
you could have been more clinical this year.
Yeah, I genuinely think that's the unspoken thing is that Liverpool could be more clinical. There's been games where Liverpool have, even just you look at the last, I'd say the last 3 league games, United should be more clinical, Tottenham should be more clinical. And by the way, and if Liverpool are more clinical against Tottenham and United, you're talking about them in the same breath as Leicester away. They fall into that category. And then even Sheffield United at home, they control the game completely, but they miss a few chances that day. And I think that it's still something to work on. I don't think there's been a moment, maybe not even a game, possibly Manchester City is the one, where all 3 of the front 3 have all played brilliantly in the same match. And that's bananas to say when you look at where we are, look at the fact that we're still in the competitions that we're in, that you can say that you can make a coherent argument that there hasn't been one standout performance really from Liverpool's front 3 that you're able to really salivate over and say, there was a period sort of after Salah joined, up until I think halfway through last season, where there was a number of games where all 3 of them had scored in the same game. Hasn't happened this campaign. Yeah. All 3 of them have not scored in the same game in this campaign as it stands. So that's major, and I think that shows where this team's still got to go. And let's be honest about this: if it is going to retain the European Cup, and only Real Madrid have, I think, since the year 2000, they're going to have to improve that, because chances do become fewer and farther between in Europe. And I think that if there's one little area to work on, it's that. Yeah,
although in the same vein, I think one of the things that set Liverpool apart for me is that when you have an average day, there are always 2 or 3 that raise it. There's always 2 or 3 that go, will make the difference.
Yeah, Mane up until sort of Villa away is a great Mane game. Mane right the way up until a certain point in the season. It's not to say he's now playing poorly, he's just playing he's playing Sadio Mane 7.5 out of 10 game, rather than Sadio Mane's 8.5, 9, 10 out of 10 game, which is what he was doing and dragging Liverpool through. But Mane, repeatedly steps up the first periods of the season, repeatedly pulls it out the bag for the Reds, wins the penalty against Leicester, scores the last minute header against Villa. Sadio Mane is there at the key times and really comes through. So no, it isn't to say, and it isn't to, it's more just have an honest appraisal of the way the 3 of them have actually, what they've contributed to. Firmino hasn't scored a goal at Anfield yet this season. I mean, the one against United, if it stands, so it's not about sort of courage or anything like that. But the flip side of that is he scored massive goals, 2 at Leicester, the one in the final in Qatar. The goals he has scored, he hasn't scored as many as people might like. He's only on 9, so he's on about 1 in 3, but they've been really significant. And I think that's what's counted.
The timing on when they step up is huge. Like Neil talks there about Firmino not scoring a goal at Anfield, and he has gone through a patch. And I've listened to shows from the Anfield Wrap, from ourselves, from other Liverpool podcasts, and during the same period, a lot of people were saying the same thing. Firmino probably needs a rest, or he needs to step it up a little bit. But during that time, Sadio Mane arrives and decides, I'll do all this for a couple of weeks, and you take your time, it's okay. Mohamed Salah was talked about earlier on in the season. They were comparing him after 7, 8, 9 games. His outlay isn't the same as it was 2 seasons ago. Ridiculous, to be fair.
And he had a little injury as well that he was constantly trying to play through.
But at that time, Firmino was doing quite well, and Mane was doing... Now, Mane might have a little drop now, but if you look now, Firmino looks like he's getting back on it, and Salah looks just a menace now. And I think he's going into the last 15 games going, Harry Kane's gone for the rest of the season. And I'm definitely taking this golden boot on my own, because he was a bit annoyed he had to share it, I'd say, last season. So at the right times, they've all stepped, like you said, they've all stepped up. But there is times when the 3 of them could step up and be brilliant. But we seem to have this knack that if one happens to be a little bit off, the other two are more covering them every week, no problem.
It's the beauty of having three elite forwards. Yes. It really is, because if you're an opposition manager, there was times when obviously Salah was flying, so everyone had to have a Salah plan. You want to have two men on Salah. Then what happens? All of a sudden, Sadio Mane starts scoring loads of goals. It's like, oh, we've got to do something about him. So if you try to do something about him, then obviously there's Firmino. The other thing that's happened this season, which has kind of allowed that front three question to not really come up, is that we're getting goals from other people.
Yeah.
That was one thing that was really lacking last season. The reason why the front three was so eulogised is because they were scoring such a large percentage of our goals. But if you look at it now, Trent's scoring more goals. Gini's got a couple. Oxlade-Chamberlain's scoring goals. Robertson scoring goals. Everybody, I think Joe Gomez is probably the only one who hasn't scored yet. Yeah. And that's fantastic. That's what you want. But obviously, the fact that we can be in a situation where the front three could be better, and so there's still a level to go, that must be really quite scary for everyone else.
Do you now look at the 100 points? Do you now look at going invincible? Is it just simply a case of let's get the league title done and then see what happens?
I think that the psychology of this is fascinating for me. It's worth remembering that I don't think Harvey Elliott was born when Arsenal went invincible. But the flip side of this is that Liverpool this season will play 2 games against the team that got 100 points. And I think it's easy to want to say, do the mature thing, make mature decisions, don't worry about it all too much. But I think if one of the things you can do is literally beat your rivals in that most direct way, then it wouldn't surprise me if that won't be in Klopp's mind, and there may at some point be a little bit of a conflict possibly between Klopp and the players around some tough decisions, because if those players do decide that they want that 100 points internally. And I think it's important to, when you talk about this Liverpool side, to give credit to different units in that sense. You know, Klopp and his coaching team are a different unit to the players. Klopp praises the players a lot in a third person way. It's unbelievable what they do. It's unbelievable the way they approach this. I can't, because it's you at the Barcelona game, you have a chance. And I think it's really interesting that he makes that differentiation in a positive. If Liverpool do less well, it's us. If Liverpool are doing brilliantly, it's quite clear it's these players. These are my boys, but they belong to themselves. And so I think it wouldn't surprise me if at some sort of point they mentioned Mo Salah and the idea of a personal goal for him, the idea of getting that golden boot and missing out on it last time. I think that it might be that those players decide, because it is basically defeating a direct rival, a team currently playing, the 100 points matters to them. The flip side is, though, that at some sort of point there might be some tough decisions to be made around selection. If Liverpool can get this league title done early, and there's no guarantees, Wolves away is going to be a difficult game. You know, I think you can, it will be a difficult game, and there's difficult games to come. But if they do get it done early, then it does raise a conflict. You know, if you've got a Champions League quarter final, if they get through against Atletico, it's back-to-back weeks. So do you make 8 changes for the game in the middle, or do you back the rhythm? And I think that's going to be difficult for the manager, but it wouldn't surprise me if it might also just be difficult psychologically for some of the players who can see greatness and want it on their CVs.
Let's open that up then. So look to the Champions League as well.
I think that's all a valid point. I think what Klopp might have in his bag to maybe counter that is the changes that he's made. I think, again, going back to the derby, where he made all those changes and they still won.
Everything's worked.
Yeah, he's proving to these guys. If you think about Curtis Jones, the way he's come in, Harvey Elliott himself, everyone's come in and contributed. And the fact that the squad is now at a point where we can say, look, I trust all of you to get this job done.
And you should trust each other.
And there does seem to be a lot of trust within that dressing room. I mean, we haven't really touched on the kind of team spirit. We spoke about mentality monsters and stuff like that. But I think in all of the things we talk about, in terms of Adrian coming into the squad, we need to be so together to be able to accept new people in and accept new people and say, look, this is our high standards. We are an elite team. If you come in, you've got to be able to match that, but still give them the freedom to express themselves, not make them fear it, but to cherish it and to want to get up to that level. And the way we are as a squad is really, really important.
Do you think then, in terms of that mentality, that they won't allow themselves to rest when it comes to the Champions League and the Premier League at the same time, that everyone will just want to play every minute?
Everyone will want to play every minute, but Klopp will have to do his bit to be able to say, look, okay, you may not be able to play in every game, but you're going to be available to contribute in every game. Let's not forget Gini Wijnaldum came off the bench against Barcelona.
Yeah.
Scored 2 goals.
One of the things I've been impressed with, I personally have quite enjoyed watching Oxlade-Chamberlain look livid that he has to come off because he wants to contribute, right? He wants to be a part of it. And that seems to be the mentality across the board. No one wants to come off because everyone's just enjoying it.
No, it's just so hard to get into that team.
Yeah.
You know, and Klopp said it many times, if you have the shirt and you play well, you keep the shirt. And he's proven that on many occasions in the, 4 years or so he's been a Liverpool manager. If you're good, you keep the shirt. Oxlade-Chamberlain was okay on Sunday. The biggest thing for me was he looked very physical in what he was doing. He was into tackles that you nearly wince if he'd done it a couple of months back because of the injury he had. But he's coming off there and he's hitting the back of chairs, and it's not because he's going to fall out with Jurgen Klopp. It's because, look, I had a decent game, but decent isn't enough. You look at Jordan Henderson the week before. He's coming off the pitch after beating Spurs, and you see Klopp trying to tell him well done, and he's like, no, it's not good enough.
Ginny talks about when he found out he was not starting the semi-final against Barcelona, and how I was angry with Klopp. But he says, but he didn't mean it sort of in terms of any
kind of a personal thing. No, it's just he wants to play.
He wants to play. And not only the senior players, we're talking about Ox, who's a senior player, Ginny's a senior player, but look at the attitude of Jones, who says, I'm being frustrated I've not been able to get into this team. I mean, we're talking about an 18-year-old or whatever he is, talking about the best team in the world, and look at his attitude and confidence. And that's all inspired by Klopp. Even the young kid, Harvey Elliott, comes onto the pitch and sort of, is a clone for Messi. Do you know what I mean? It's amazing. but it's amazing.
Massive show.
It's massive. Yeah, you reckon?
Just a bit.
But it's just instilled throughout the youngsters, throughout the team. Talk about Joe Gomez, who's still very young. We forget he's playing like sort of a defender that's been sort of playing his trade for years and years and knows everything about the centre-back position, but he's 22 or something?
He's 22, yeah.
Amazing. And so it's not just the senior members, it's throughout the whole squad. The maturity in Trent, the maturity in the squad is outstanding.
Just quickly on the Champions League for you, do you think you go for it again in the same way? Or is the league very much
no, look, if you asked me before Christmas, I would have said, look, I don't give a shit. When I say I don't give a shit about Champions League, I don't literally mean that.
The priority is
the league. Just give me the league over anything else. But now that we've smashed the league, now that we've smashed the league in January, absolutely, why not go for the FA Cup? Give the youngsters a run out. Absolutely amazing confidence for them, boost for them, and definitely the Champions League.
So on top, let's touch on this kind of like the attitude swing and the change. It feels like at the beginning of the season, as a neutral looking on, people were not ready to accept that Liverpool were going to be at this level. Has it changed for you as Liverpool fans? Do you mind the fact that everyone else is kind of on this bandwagon now?
Neil's the man for this.
I want people to be on the bandwagon and to acknowledge that this is one of the truly greatest sides that has ever existed in English football history. And it may go on to demonstrate this season that it is the greatest side in English football history. It got 97 points and won the European Cup last year. If it goes on, retains that, wins this league the way in which it looks like it's going to do, and it may well still be able to go deep in the FA Cup, then I think you'll have to be able to say this is one of the great sides. It is one of the great sides. As part of so I do want people to be on that, because I just think, well, if you're not on that, then we're all kidding ourselves. Man City in the autumn to winter of 2017 played some of the greatest football I've ever seen. They demolished Tottenham, but scored 4 past Tottenham on December the 16th. I excite the game all the time because I watched it agog. This is unreal, this football.
Oh, yeah.
And you should be able to say that because we're all grown-ups ultimately, and and we're also meant to be able to appreciate the sport. In terms of from a Liverpool point of view, for me, I am not, even with the points total being where it is, I'm not that surprised. What I am surprised about is the gap. Yeah. And it's the gap that opens up the opportunity of being able to focus on possibly 3 fronts. Having already got the World Club Championship in the bag and the Super Cup, being able to do that, it is the gap. So for me, I am genuinely surprised that City are going up basically only a tiny little bit better than 2 points a game. And we're going at what we're going at. It really wouldn't surprise me if we were going at what we were going at and City were still only 6 points behind, at which point you wouldn't even have us here. But if you did, we'd all be saying, well, we've got a big mid circle around that game at the Etihad in April. Yeah. That's what's not happened here. And I think that's what changes the mentality from a Liverpool point of view. It changes the parameter. And I think that what Liverpool have done in a road in this Manchester City side, which is one of the great sides of English football history, over the last 2 seasons, the 2 seasons prior to this one, which may well also still finish this season as European champions. Let's have that right. They can win that European Cup. What Liverpool have done in eroding that team, eroding them down to what they've done, breaking them even last season when Bernardo Silva and Raheem Sterling were dragging them over the line week after week after week, and they showed such character City, they just couldn't do it again. And right now, I haven't seen Raheem Sterling have a good game for 2 months. Bernardo Silva's had 1 good game in about the last 4 because they put everything into that last year. They've got nothing left to give, and we are where we are, and they are where they are, and we have done that across a whole calendar year, if not even more.
What about you, Mo? Do you appreciate the fact that people are now actually starting to come around to this side?
It is quite fun, particularly when you're thinking about Jordan Henderson, someone who was maligned not only within our fan base, but definitely within the wider fan base, and people who just didn't understand, people didn't get it. And yet there were manager after manager who would not only pick him, but make him central to what they were trying to do. The fact that now people are beginning to realise this, whether begrudgingly or not, that is good. One thing I would say, though, is that there's not really much point in us hanging our hat and changing everybody's minds.
No.
Because there is going to be loads of people out there who are just going to have to find something just to make themselves feel better.
Flat earthers.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen it. I've seen that a little bit over the last few months, and I'm still trying to trying to understand what possible thing people can leverage to suggest that it's just not.
Oh yeah.
No. But when the distance is that far, how does that work?
Neil's spoken about the gap. He's a little bit surprised by the gap. Yeah, I think that's fair. But he's right in what he says. Liverpool have a role in Man City. And Man City used to be able to take a blow in a game and now we can come back and do it. When they take a blow in a game now, the pressure's heaped on them to do it. Because they know if they don't, Liverpool will. And instead of, drawing against Palace and, Liverpool may draw there and we might be okay. No, we've drawn today and Liverpool are putting another 2 on us. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. And the league table shows you. City have, I think, lost 5 games this season.
Yeah.
They've drawn 3.
Yeah.
So I don't think they've won 5 games in a row this season at any stage. Liverpool have won 21 out of 12. I've lost count. 21 out of 22. And one of them was a draw at Old Trafford. So, we've put 2 10-game winning streaks together, more or less, when you add them up. And that's what teams like that do to you. That's what City done to teams 2 years ago. They're 100 points. They won it with 100 points, but you knew from way out they were winning it because they were always going to take advantage of any slip that any side in this league made. And that's what Liverpool are doing now. On the mentality thing, from the start of the season, I wanted a league title. That was it. I was quoted on one of the shows we done where I said, I don't care if we don't win a coin toss for the rest of the season once we win a league title. Neil's right. You're going to end up with tough decisions because, listen, we're going to get into February, probably middle to end of March, albeit if we get past Atletico Madrid, where you are going to have to make decisions on games on Sunday and then games come Wednesday. And it is going to have to switch to the European Cup. The FA Cup will take care of itself. The likes of Adrian that we mentioned earlier, Shaqiri, Lallana, all these sort of players, Minamino that's come in, he'll get a good run in that. But when you look at it, we are going to have to switch because at the end of the day, Liverpool are in the business of trying to win major trophies. And you can't turn around and say, well, we have that 1-1 and we want to make it really extra special. But we don't want to win this really big one. It has to, you're in that business. You know the way you are in that business. And can we go invincible? Absolutely, they can. They have the ability. Will they? No, I don't think so because them decisions will have to be made. Will they top 100 points? I'll be very surprised if they don't.
But again, think about the evolution of the side. If you look back to last season, we were millimetres away from winning the league and the European Cup with 100 points and being unbeaten.
Yeah.
The one game that we lost was against Man City, which would have changed all that. So the fact that now we've got this gap means that the idea of being able to win both those trophies is even more likely than it was last season. So we've absolutely got to go for it.
Just to finish up, let's talk about the club itself, because one thing we haven't mentioned is the way in which the club and the fans are quite united. Something small for me, or not even small, but just something that's perhaps not even to do with the football. Someone like Jamie Webster, for example, seemed to kind of galvanised and connected people in a way that not a lot of other clubs can get anywhere near. And that, for me, was kind of one of the things that opened my eyes to this. This is a very unified club, isn't it, between fans and the team and the board and the management?
Yeah, the club right now has got so much of that right. There's a lot of people who don't like, and there's a lot of snide thrown towards the This Means More marketing slogan. First and foremost, the This Means More marketing slogan is a marketing slogan, so calm down. But secondly, though, I do think
we're going back to unbearable.
But I do think ever so slightly Liverpool Football Club, since they've been touting that as a marketing slogan, have tried to live that value. to a decent degree, not to an absolutely perfect degree, which means they're an unimpeachable, wonderful set of people. There's still the business of football that goes on. And they have tried to do that. And I think it's important to remember that in the context of the fact that we are still not quite 5 years from a third to a half of the ground walking out over FSG, increasing the ticket prices against Sunderland. And I think that so much of this brilliant stuff that's happened since, I'm glad you mentioned Jamie, because, he does brilliant stuff and people love him and he's such a lovely person. But all of this, Kiev, Madrid, all of it's happened. We still are not 5 years since half that ground walked out because they tried to put the ticket prices up. And the growth of the football club, Klopp never took the side of the club. He never took the side of the supporters either. He ploughed a very neat little route. But that happens, and then 6 weeks later, Liverpool beat Dortmund 4-3. With the late winner, where the whole crowd is absolutely in ferment. And I think that summer, if you're Jurgen Klopp, you're able to say to the ownership, I'm your manager, I am your guy, but I need none of that to happen again, and I need a lot of Dortmund to happen again, and how are we going to work on that? And I genuinely think the club has taken, that's an idea to walk out on your football team because they're putting the prices up is an idea. And when at the moment, for instance, United supporters are talking about their club and everyone's having club-based conversations, to walk out is a really low moment, but we did that. And from there now, the bond has never been stronger. It's never been better. And everyone at the football club, and I include the supporters, everyone at the football club deserves credit for the fact that we've rebuilt that. From that low, we've rebuilt to where we are now, where, as you say, we're the most unified club in the country. The way the players are treated, spoken about, applauded, acclaimed after the game, the way the manager speaks about them, the way there is the relationship between the supporters and the ownership for the first time since, we had Hicks and Gillette and court cases. It's unreal. And they've done everybody, and as I say, you have to include the supporters. Everybody has done absolutely brilliantly.
I think another thing that gets overlooked within all of that is that FSG, in that instance, have learned from their mistakes. As I say, the prices since then have been pretty much stable. And there's been other instances where they've come out and got it wrong, and they've learned from it. They've listened, and they've allowed that to become something of a strength. Whereas before it was like, okay, we got it wrong, but we're listening to you now. And fans are starting to trust that they are listening, so that when they do get it wrong, there will be able to be some kind of reconciliation. I compare it to, say, a situation at Newcastle. We have a thing like Mike Ashley, who's just going to dig his heels in. They didn't do that. I think to a certain extent they are still aware that they are still getting used to the idea of being the owners of a football team in England. And then you put on the fact that you're an owner of a football team in Liverpool, which is a slightly different thing all of its own. For them to come in and to be able to get that tone and to be able to say, as I said, when we've got it wrong, we're going to listen. That's what aids things like Dortmund. And like you said, Klopp would have definitely said to them, look, we need to harness these guys. Have you seen how much power they give us? We need to get these guys on side. And if you say many things about FSG, they're not stupid.
When it makes money, and the more money they're going to make.
Yeah, it's absolutely a business. And for me, you look at the appointment of Tony Barrett into the club.
Yep.
You look at Peter Moore is really the face of the club at the moment. He's very good on social media at times. He listens. From what I can hear, he's listened. There was stuff going back about the trademark stuff. I know the Anfield Wrap done a little bit on it at the time, and it was a really good piece. I think it might have been Gibbo done it, where he got both sides of the story and stuff like that. But just seeing, an executive of a club come out and willing to talk like that is a massive thing. But for me, the big thing is the people that are in jobs, they're working to what their job title is. And Jurgen Klopp is Liverpool manager, and he manages the players who are players. And FSG, the main lads that were there at the start, and did make noise, like Mo said, they made noise, and then you realise it's probably the wrong noise to make. We'll have to go back and adjust that slightly. They seem to have gone quiet, and it seems to suit everybody. They're the silent partner in all this. They're a major partner in all of it. They're the biggest partner, I suppose. But they're a lot more quiet than they used to be. And there's a couple of people there that are the face of the club, as you would call them, but it works really, really well now. The club feels a lot more accessible to fans. And look, from the time FSG came in 2010, and it was bad. It was really, really bad. To now, if we're looking going back 4 years on a walkout, it is the most dramatic thing you can do at a football club, is walk out on players as they're playing on the pitch. To when you look at it now, and even things around, we win a European Cup and all the merchandise you can want is there. When we won it in 2005, you couldn't get a club shop that was open. That's sort of the way it is. That's the truth. So people walking to their job title, I think, is a massive thing over the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years at Liverpool Football Club.
Grizz, I'll give you the last word.
There's absolutely nothing I can add more than what these guys have said. I just think the image of the team currently is probably a fair comparison to the image of the owners in terms of problem solving. What they've done started from scratch. Humility, the humility to listen, the humility to just to acknowledge mistakes have been made, but they've been rectified quietly in-house. It's amazing. It's an absolute dream world we're living in. And long may it continue. That's all I can say.
Right, we'll wrap up there. I mean, what a brilliant show. That was great fun, and it was really good to listen, particularly from a neutral perspective, and see the way in which things have played out through Liverpool fans' eyes. And I'm glad that it seems quite close to what neutrals are now seeing and neutrals are now getting, because I think there has been a shift in perception. There's certainly been a shift in the way that people are prepared to look and appreciate this Liverpool side. So we'll see how it ends. We're looking forward to the last few games. Make sure you check out LFC Day Trippers and the Anfield Wrap. We'll leave links in the description underneath, so you can go and check those guys' channels, their podcasts as well, which are really, really great. Thank you so much for coming down, everyone. Coming from all over the place. Really appreciate it. Subscribe to 90 Min if you haven't already, and we'll see you all next time.